good evening, wherever you are in the world today. Welcome to Women with Grit, where we interview dynamic women around the world who are truly making a difference in their communities as well as in their industries. We are so excited to be back on air. We're excited to have you back in the stage. So go ahead and come on in the room. Grab your favorite drink of choice, grab your favorite beverage because we are back on. And we have another dynamic guest to grace the stage today, Miss Hakemia Jackson. And I tell you what, you guys are in for a treat, okay? So go ahead and hit the like, share. Be sure to go ahead and engage with us on any one of our platforms. You can find us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/ Exceptional Women with Grit. You can also find us on YouTube at www.youtube.com/ the @ Women with Grit. You can find us on any platform as well as on our website at www.womenwithgrit.com. So you know how we do. We love to engage with you guys. So go ahead and leave your city, state that you're joining in from in the chat function so we can be sure to acknowledge you properly throughout this broadcast. And you know we love engagement, so be sure to engage with us and our guests throughout the entirety of this time that we have, which is an hour, right? It's so exciting to actually be back on air. As you guys will see, Lee is not on tonight. As we said in one of our previous shows, life is happening, so we've had to make some modifications and adjustments. However, we are so excited that you are on. He will be on throughout as well as we continue to do some pre-recorded sessions as well as live. All right, so be sure to jump in with us and engage with us throughout the entirety of the night. I want to make sure that you guys get a chance to connect with our guests. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you guys to Hakemia Jackson, okay? So let me give you this powerhouse's amazing bio. But she is a gift enforcer. Her passion and energy to inspire audiences and clients to step beyond their conditioned responses and perceived limitations so that they are able to live out their divine greatness within. As a global executive coach, HR influencer, and DEI board advisor, Hakemia is a highly sought after partner to leaders and teams of Fortune 500 companies, startups, and nonprofit organizations facing culture restructuring due to the great reshuffle and the future of work. She has been recognized by LinkedIn as one of the leading Black voices to follow and amplify, and by Brains Magazine as a DEI influencer. Hakemia takes a systematic, intersectional, human-centric approach to her work to deliver tailored and sustainable solutions to organizations like Shell, Oil and Gas, the New York Times, Concentric, and the Executive Leadership Council, Yahoo, Google, Microsoft, General Mills, and many more. She is a visionary force and has touched the lives of many people across the globe, including those in Israel, Germany, France, Africa, and the Americas. On most days, Hakemia enjoys long walks in her community with her 3 beautiful brown crowns, as well as her husband, Bradford. You can build community with her on LinkedIn and Instagram at Divinely Powered LLC. And her quote is, "True leadership abilities start within and are refined and amplified through our lived experiences." Welcome to the stage, Miss Hakemia Jackson. How are you?
I'm doing good this evening, and I'm so honored to be a part of this opportunity to fellowship and connect with the brilliant leaders on the other side of the webinar.
So excited to have you on, and thank you again for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us on the show tonight.
Thankful to be here.
So the way we love to kick this off is to just get to know a little bit more about you. So tell us your unique story of grit.
My unique story of grit is I'm going to fast forward to my young leadership opportunities, and this was during a time where I was leading at one of the big fours, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and I actually experienced discrimination. So this was before, George Floyd, and where everyone's, proud to call out biases and microaggressions and stifling behaviors from their leaders. This was way before that. So for all of our leaders out there, people who are in corporate, I'm pretty sure you're well aware. Before then, we kind of had to do things under the radar. I was leading an engagement, and the partner at the time had a perception of who she thought I was and what she allowed me to do. So, for many of you, I'm pretty sure you've heard of the glass ceiling. It's definitely real depending on what organizational culture you are connected with, as well as the team that you're in. I was leading an engagement, and because she was, very stifling, and she wanted to limit my opportunity for growth. On this engagement, she specifically tailored certain tasks for me to do. And it was an opportunity where I had an opportunity to do a bit more. And I did that without her approval. And because I did that without her approval, she basically said, I need to, run everything by her. She doesn't give a damn about my experience, or what other partners allow me to do. I need to stay in my place and say, yes, ma'am. Now, mind you, now, this is at a global organization. I repeat, a global organization who claims to care about their diverse resources. And yet, you got a partner speaking in this manner. So, for some people, they may feel as though they didn't have any choice to speak up, or they may feel isolated because of the acts of their leaders. But for me, what I did in that instance, I said, who the hell do you think you're talking to? I'm a grown woman. My mother doesn't talk to me that way, and I'm not going to allow you to talk to me that way, because at the end of the day, we're both adults. Of course, she didn't agree with that response, because, again, she seen me as inferior. I then took this concern to the rest of the team and shared what occurred. They were also surprised because it never happened to them. I was the only one on the team. When I say the only one, for some who don't know what that means, I was the only Black woman on the team leading an engagement. After investigation, she later resigned after discrimination. Through that experience of the investigation, though, I definitely felt like the scarlet letter. I didn't know who to trust, because she was a part of the establishment. And when I say the establishment, she was a part of a culture and an organizational norm that was not openly okay with the behaviors that she exemplified, but it was still approved. Okay. And so what it taught me was, in that experience, was to always stay true to who I am and whose I am. I truly believe that we are put in divine positions to lead and to grow for a reason and a season. And that reason and season is because of, whatever the plan that God has for us. And so it taught me a lot about who I am, and who I was at the time, and the leader that I wanted to become. And so I know that's a long story about my grit journey, but I definitely grew in staying true to my values and what I knew to be true for me, regardless on what society or your environment tries to project on you.
I love that. And I would love to even say that I hadn't experienced something similar, but it's so common, unfortunately. And I would
Very
imagine that that's why you dove into the space of DE&I.
absolutely.
So tell us a little bit more about that journey and what led to your passion to start and go from Pricewaterhouse Cooper into
Mhm.
your organization?
Yes, thank you so much for asking that. This is my story. So actually, that experience specifically pushed me into starting my own practice because I realized from that experience that I wasn't the only one. I checked
Mm-hmm.
in with my staff and I asked them, hey, have you ever felt, stifled? Have you ever felt that you couldn't advocate for yourself? Have you ever felt overlooked, misunderstood, and experienced certain biases where if it was the confirmation bias where people tried to put you in positions to confirm what they believe you are as an individual, or the halo and horns biases where people typically if they have a good experience with you, they keep this halo bias and say, oh, this person's a good person. But if there's any experiences of conflict, they keep this perspective of you being, it's called the horns bias, a bad person throughout your career. And so, long story short, what this experience made me realize was I needed to position myself for people who didn't have the voice, who didn't know how to navigate these tumultuous times that we're currently in, or even the times where, and I know I'm speaking to people who may have felt like, wait, is this real? Is this really happening to me? Sometimes, like you probably thought you were crazy or you were imagining it. Yes, it's real. And so my practice started about 8 years ago to be the voice of the voiceless, or the voice of the silenced. I truly did want to position people to amplify their voices in their lived experiences. And so I started on this journey of connecting, with different leaders and organizations. And thankfully, the exposure that PricewaterhouseCoopers gave me was definitely utilized in building my practice. And so now, our primary focus at Divinely Powered is to partner with organizations and leaders who are experiencing limited thinking patterns or behaviors that may impede on their growth and development within the organization, which ultimately impacts talent, retention, succession planning, as well as employee engagement. And so it's just been a true blessing in being able to, and I like to say this, shine the light on things that are oftentimes missed in the darkness, as well as to encourage and motivate those who feel as though their journey isn't valued or their identity isn't valued by the dominant culture, which is in some spaces is the dominant white culture.
So it's so interesting that we're having this conversation because, similar to you, I remember that my journey to starting my organization, it happened 15 years ago. And I remember very distinctly while I was working at a Fortune 500 company. And as like how when you're like climbing that ladder so fast and you're young and you're African American and you're a woman, you got all these things which are great, but then sometimes people find that to be intimidating as well. And I remember sitting across the table from my manager at the time that I inherited. It wasn't one that actually sponsored me to coming into the organization, but because of changes, I
Mhm.
inherited this individual. And I remember sitting across the table from him, and he said to me, I don't believe that you belong to be here. I don't believe that you, yes, he did. Directly to me said, I do not belong. He does not belong. He does not believe that I belong to be in this very elite position, doing what I was doing, and also getting this, just the projects that were given to me. And he tried really hard to actually have me pushed out the door. But that experience did two things, of which there was a ram in the bush who lived in clear across the country in a completely different state. And when it came time for calibration and everything, he raised a hand. I never said anything to him, but he raised the hand and he said, I don't think that there's something going on here that isn't ethical. And they launched an investigation because of that. But what that
Wow.
experience taught me, similarly to you, was one, I wanted to be in control of my livelihood, but it was also the catalyst for what was my organization, which was helping people to create generational wealth that they could multiply through use of their businesses. But I say all that to say, in the large part for you, in what you even expressed, which is how these sometimes uncomfortable, I call them, an experience worth having, not necessarily one worth repeating, because
Mhm.
it becomes the catalyst to something great where now you are a voice, like you said, to the voiceless, and you're able to share and shine a light to an organization that says, hey, there are opportunities to modify, and there are some of these microisms that's going on, right? And
Mhm.
that microaggressions that are happening within the organization as well. So, on that note, one of the things I want to ask you was on the space of self limiting beliefs. As you were, whether it be in that experience or even as you think through your journey, has there ever been a time where you experienced a self limiting belief? And if so, what did you do or are doing to overcome that?
Oh, absolutely. There are many times because oftentimes I was the only. So I started off my career at PwC, but PwC in tech. So my background is in SAP and Oracle system implementations, where I built security controls, programming, and oftentimes I was the only one in the room, the only female, the only woman of color, and the only person my age. And so I doubted myself and my capabilities. And so I didn't lead with this, but I'm also the first one in my family to graduate high school and go to college. In
That's awesome.
corporate America, to be real, was a foreign environment to me. And so I didn't know the language, right? I had to learn the corporate norms and the quirks of the culture that I wasn't necessarily exposed to. And so at times I doubted myself and my abilities because I noticed that the other associates was getting the visibility, and oftentimes those associates display skills and relationship attributes that align with the majority culture that I didn't have, nor was I exposed to. And so I doubted, again, myself on whether or not I belonged there. And I realized that I was there over time for a reason. I was meant to be the unicorn in the room. I was meant to be the unique voice. I was meant to show that it's the difference that makes the difference. When you hear about diversity, equity, and inclusion, now you're starting to hear about diversity in thought. Um, Not realizing that I was ahead of my game, but showing or displaying the diversity of thought, during those times allowed me to set myself apart from the average performer. And in time I learned to appreciate that through my mentors as well as relationship champions to say it's okay to be you. And sometimes we do. That's the reality. We do need people to validate our uniqueness. It's okay to be you. And you for me stands for your own uniqueness. It's okay for your own uniqueness to be displayed in whatever space that you're in. And if you don't have anyone to validate that, not saying that you do it for yourself and believe it. Identify that unique value proposition that you have and you hold strong to it, even if the culture or environment doesn't validate you or give you your kudos. Know that you belong in that space for a reason and a specific season, and hold true to that. Don't let nobody tell you differently.
I love that. And especially the way that you defined you. You said it was your own uniqueness. It's okay to be you, which is your own uniqueness. That is awesome. The other thing that you talked about was having people in your corner that really champion your success, right? So, when you think about those people who have walked with you along the way, or some of those people who have been there to cheerlead for you or part of your tribe, who would you attribute that space to?
Oh, I got a nice mixed bag of of leaders.
Yeah.
I would say don't be shy, or you know what, don't reject the leader who may not fit your traditional expectations of what a champion should look like or be like or act like.
Say more
uh,
about that. Say more about that.
One of my greatest champions, to be honest, is a white male from Canada who every day took the time to explore me and my background. He would come in every morning and say, you know what, Hakemia, tell me something new about yourself. And I know traditionally, as people of color, or if you come from a culture where you're a bit more private, you may be, you know, an introvert, or you may be hesitant to share because of, you know, historically what we know to happen when you share too much. It might be used as retaliation. Something in my spirit said this person is different because he was consistent in his exploration of learning his talent. He was consistent in being curious. Simon Sinek calls it ferociously curious, exploring beneath the words. And so every time I would share about my experience, he would be like, oh my God, I thought this and I see that I was wrong. So in those times together, he also exposed his vulnerability. And that's not normal for white men out there. And for the most part, he really guided me through those challenges, but he was also willing to make a sacrifice and speak on my behalf, even if my name wasn't the loved name in the room.
So about gaining those that champion your success along the way,
Yes.
and being able to sponsor, like, or like you said, gaining those that are not in the room. So you had someone that had a voice and that was comfortable putting their reputation at stake to say, give Hakemia a chance. And not only that, but this wasn't someone that looked like you or even identified, but someone that was ferociously curious to
Mm-hmm.
learn more about you, engage, and really dig deep. So,
Correct.
do you think that, like, his vulnerability and his desire to get to know you helped to open you up to him or even other cultures?
Yes, because one of the things that we encourage as leadership growth practitioners and executive coaches is to model the behavior that you want to see. And by him displaying, you know, this vulnerability, he created a safe space. But first, what I needed to observe was his consistency and his authenticity in the experience. And so, what I noticed was he wasn't just doing it for me, it was for everyone. He provided an equitable experience for everyone on his team. And he did it in the unique way that relates to the talent's needs and desires. And you can't find that often. And for some, I know it might be a challenge because you're trying to navigate the leadership lens and what they identify as the fit talent, but you have to really look for those individuals who are culture adds to your team or your organization and lead them according to their needs so that they can feel like they belong, so that they can have this equitable experience within the organization.
So, I have another question for you, and then we're going to take a quick break because, believe it or not, we're all it goes by so fast. Yes, it really, really does. You talked about modeling the behavior specifically in corporations, nonprofits, any of those things. What would you say are some myths that you want to dispel about DE&I? And I say that just while you're thinking about it because DE&I, diversity, equity, and inclusion, has, in some instances, or for some people, feel cliche, right? It's becoming the nature of it being cliche. So, what are
Yeah.
some of the myths? What are some of the ways that people can lean into DE&I to be more receptive in their organizations?
Um, One of the myths, I think, and this is primarily for your allies, is that it's a zero sum game. It's not true. It's an opportunity for you to develop your cultural competencies as well as cultural humility, meaning me understanding the different cultures that exist within the organization and me seeking to learn and grow from that experience and apply it to my day-to-day leadership work or opportunity so that it can become a cultural competency. um, the second myth is I can't see myself as it relates to DNI. Everybody has a diverse story. We have multiple identities. There's not one single story. You could be white and a mother and a part of a lower socioeconomic status. You could be black, male in the military, and with a higher education. The social identity wheel, I like to call it, is very diverse and it has multiple different points of identity, and you can identify yourself in that experience. The next myth is that we should keep DIB in a silo, only hire one person to complete an organization wide initiative. They need help, they can't do it alone, and it needs to be a part of the organizational strategy in order for it to be implemented and taken seriously throughout the organization. And lastly, I will say this, that we can't measure performance against it. I think that's a lie, and that's a cop out to not keep people accountable who don't truly support DIB. I think you can definitely create a performance metrics that's tied to DIB, and that simply can be how many people of diverse backgrounds that you connect with in this quarter, and have that person list that individual as well as the amount of people, amount of times that they connected to help them grow their cultural competencies within the organization.
I love that. Believe it or not, like I said, we're just about halfway through. But before we go, I want to play a quick game with you of this or that. Okay, and this is just to get to know what you prefer. So, coffee or tea?
T.
Tea. All right. Brown bag or order lunch?
Order lunch.
Okay. Beach vacation or city vacation?
I'm a Florida girl, beach vacation. And I said vacation on purpose with my hubby. Yes.
I love that. Wake up early or go to sleep late?
Ooh, wake up early. Early bird.
Awesome. Read a book or watch a movie?
Oh, that's a tough one. I would say watch a movie.
Okay. You got a series right now that you're binging on?
No specific series right now, but it was a good one that it was a good movie, I would say, that I encourage everyone to watch is They Clone Tyrone on Netflix, which was phenomenal. I think it's a lot of life lessons in there, and it's extremely comical at the same time.
That was a good one, yeah. Okay, so stay home or go out?
Go out. I gotta dance. Have a good time.
I know that's right. Cat or dog?
Dog. Puppy lover.
Cook dinner or do dishes?
Cook dinner.
Spend or save?
I'm a saver.
Okay. And Netflix or movie theater?
Movie theater.
Drive or walk?
Walk.
Work from home or work in the office?
Ooh, that's tough. Right now, most of my work is remote, but I do miss the in-person life. So I do travel from time to time. I gotta stay in the middle with that one. Gotta stay in the middle.
I'm with you there. Summer or winter?
Summer girl. I am not ready for this Atlanta winter. Not at all.
Well, it's here. I hear it's going to be in the 40s later this week.
I know.
Summer is just about gone, but that's all right. Okay, so that brings us to the first half of our segment. Hakimia, this has been phenomenal. I'm gonna pull you back just so you can take an opportunity to grab some water, and then I'll bring you up to for the second half. We'll do Q&A from our audience. So be sure to have your questions on deck and ready for Hakimia as well. So you guys are sitting with Hakemia Jackson here on Women with Grit. I'll bring you right back up. I mean, man, what a plethora of jewels Hakima has left for us just in the space of being able to lead from the place of DE&I, being extremely, some of the nuggets that I captured, and I'll go back through the recap a little bit later, was to remain and stay true to who you are and whose you are, right? She talked about the nature of really owning your greatness and owning your divine purpose, right? You are put into divine positions for a reason and a season. So remember to stay true to your values, regardless of what's going on around you or what people may say specifically about you. It's okay to be you. And in her words, you stands for your own uniqueness, and recognize that there is a great strength sometime in being the unicorn, as she has put it in the room. So you are tuned into Women with Grit. Feel free to join us in the chat where we can engage. If you have any questions for Hakimia, please be sure to leave them there and we will bring them up throughout the night. And again, you can follow us on www.facebook.com/exceptional women with grit. You can also find us on YouTube at www.youtube.com/ with the @ symbol and Women with Grit. We are tuned and dialed in. We are back live, as well as some pre-recorded as well throughout the week, as well as on the weekends. As well. But you guys can always catch the replays on YouTube or Facebook, or also follow us on our website at www.womenwithgrit.com. But right here, 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Tuesdays from now through the end of the year. And if you know of a phenomenal woman or a woman with grit that you would recommend to the stage, be sure to connect with us on any one of our platforms and send us an email, and a member of our team will be sure to reach out and connect with you. All right, so we're going to bring Hakimia back up and take it on to the second part of this amazing and exciting conversation about Hakimia and her journey through being a woman with grit. So, okay, and again, we've got a couple questions that are coming in the chat. Feel free to do so regardless of what platform you are joining in from, because we've got a couple that are on here tonight. So I'm going to bring up this question by Nefertiti Smith. She said, what are 3 things that each of you would tell your 21-year-old self? So that's me and Hakimia. All right, so 3 things that we would tell our 21-year-old self. I'll let you go first.
Oh, 3. Okay. 21-year-old self is to be comfortable with the uncomfortable, because I was 21, moving to Houston, away from home, and I was moving away from my family for the first time, to connect with my father, who I didn't grow up with. And so along those lines, that second point will be, to love me, even if the people that I desire to love me don't love me back. And so what I mean by that is, in that experience of me moving to Houston, wanting to connect with my father, starting a new job, I was yearning for this love from my father, to replace, to fill a void that I always grew up with, since I didn't grow up with him. And just with him, being around him for about 14 years and us still not having the relationship that I desired, um, it just taught me to still love myself better than anyone else can, and not to second guess the gifts that God gave me, and to use those gifts proudly and unapologetically to change the people and culture around me. So those would be my three things.
I love that. I love that. So you said, I want to make sure I got at least a couple of them, which was love yourself even when people who don't love you back. Go ahead.
Mm. Yep.
Who won't
Nope.
love you back. Be comfortable with the uncomfortable. And then I missed the third one.
It would be using unapologetically.
Using,
Your gifts unapologetically.
okay, gifts. Got it. Using your gifts unapologetic. Awesome. Okay, so for me, really quickly was one, just do it. Be unapologetically me, right? Which was the nature of own the space in the room and step into the light. A lot of the times I've shied away from it. I was the one that got stuff done behind the scenes. I didn't have to be on screen. Didn't have to, kind of do that. And life and roles have already kind of pulled me into spaces of leadership, but quite naturally, I'm an introvert, and I kind of, I pull back, if you will. So that's the first one. For me, the second one was to take time to rest. So if I was talking to my 21-year-old self who was just like, always at a 10, pushing and running and going, and, had this philosophy about life and really anything that I wanted to manifest, I just have that belief that I can. But the one thing that I did not put as much value to at the time was resting and the importance of just taking a moment, right? And taking that trip and just having that moment. So that's the second one. And then the third one would be to spend more time with family and friends. So my journey in life and career has taken me in a lot of amazing places, of which I'm extremely blessed to have been able to do. But for me, I've missed some of the birthdays of my nieces or, and my nephew. And I look back and I'm like, man, they're not babies anymore. So I would say to my 21-year-old self, which is, lean into that and really enjoy those moments and enjoy the time. Enjoy the ride. It's probably the best way.
Enjoy the ride.
Enjoy the ride. Okay, so on that note, tell us a little bit more about Hakemia. Let's take off the professional hat and put on the mom and work-life balance hat. And how are things outside of the office or just in life in general?
Um, you know, I'm glad you asked that question. I like to say this. I'm a devoted believer, tied as hell mom of three, and and a committed wife. And I say all three because I feel like those three are always juggling in the air in addition to running my own practice. And so at times it is exhausting. At times you are, doubting yourself. The imposter syndrome may arise and you're trying to just get through it. And so you really have to, for me, this is me personally, have a strong faith and belief in something or someone to get you through. You also have to have a village around you of people who speak life into you. You also have to, keep those assets. And these are the things that are valuable around you rather than having these liabilities, meaning the things that take from you, to make sure that you can, operate fully in your best self, and know that your best self may change. Every day I may not be my best self, but I want to make sure that I am the self that I love in that moment. Now, if I'm not loving me in the moment, there's something inherently going on with me that I need to pause, reflect on, and refine. Okay. Pause, reflect, and refine in the moment if I'm not my best self in whatever season of life that I'm in. You also got to, for me, I had to accept that I can't always be on. I also had to accept that I'm not your superwoman. I need help. Okay. I cannot do it all, and nor am I trying to do it all. So I had to relinquish the control of trying to control everything, everybody, and the outcome, and allow, I like to say this, and take myself from being God and allowing God to be God.
Amen. Amen. You know, women oftentimes, and I'm making a huge generalization here, but one of the things that we work through is the space of perfectionism, wanting
Oh.
things to be perfect and kind of, aligning things one behind the other. But what would you say is one maybe tip that a woman can use to overcome perfectionism, to get it done, to move out of the way? Because sometimes that also hinders us in business. We usually have to get it 70 to 80% of the way done before we move on anything. Whereas, guys typically are like 2%, and I'm throwing my name in the hat. 30%, and I got it. Like, just that space of whether it's confidence, perfectionism, that kind of either one's lacking or one we have a little bit too much of. But what are your thoughts about that, or one tip that women or that people in general, because our show caters to more than just women, can use to overcome perfectionism?
I would say you have to relinquish control. And so there is this tool that I use. It's called the sphere of influence and control. And
Mhm.
so in these environments, where we try to be the perfectionist. We try to, position ourselves in positions, places, and spaces, and tasks and projects where you may not necessarily be the lead, but you think or you assume that you know everything and you have everything, but there's always gaps, right, that you just don't know, in gray areas. And so instead of me trying to put myself or implant myself in places, spaces that I may not have the full information, I have to take that step back. Because when it comes to perfectionism, what typically happens with executive, well, with anybody, is eventually I reach this burnout cliff. That's what they call it. Okay. This is before you reach actual burnout. You reach the cliff, and on that cliff, you make a decision on if you are going to fall over into this space of being burnt out or depression. And so, one way is using that tool, really identifying, what's in your sphere of influence and control. And then another is to really take a step back and ask yourself, and it's a simple question: how is this working for me? Is this feeding me, or is this taking from my greatness? And if you have a real honest conversation with yourself, you'll discover that there are certain elements in certain parts of your life where, yes, it might be working in one area, but if it's sacrificing my health, my family, me being present, or the things that I value, it's not worth it.
Say that last part one more time for the people in the back.
If it is jeopardizing my health, my family, me being present, and the things that I value the most, it is not worth it. And I want to add this piece here. One thing that we have to realize for women, and specifically Black women, is that we have this tendency to work or to be this perfectionist until it kills me. Ain't no job, position, title worth your life, boo boo, or your marriage, or your kids rebelling. Make yourself present and a present in your life.
That's right. I mean, like, you are hitting the nail on the head. Just the space of being able to be present, to be not only present, but connected with self and aware enough to know that now is the time I need to check in because something is off kilter, or maybe I had an attitude, or maybe I responded a certain way, or I wasn't as patient as I normally would be, to say, okay, let me pause and take a moment to see, like you just said, check in with yourself to determine whether or not this is something that's within your sphere of control.
Right.
Wow. Hakimi, this
Right.
is great. Okay, so believe it or not, we're getting close to the end. So if you all have any questions for Hakemia, please feel free to leave them in the chat function for her, because we will continue to talk about this. Is some great and rich really, really rich nuggets that she is dropping. So if you know of anyone who could utilize this information, be sure to not only tap them to join in so they can get their questions answered, but then also to catch the replay as well of this amazing broadcast and opportunity to sit specifically with Hakemia. So I want to ask you a couple of things before I give the wrap up. The first one is, what are a couple of nuggets that you would like to leave with our viewers? It doesn't have to be specifically to women, but in general, and it could be around the space of DE&I, it could be around the space of life balance, etc. What would you say are a couple of nuggets that you would like to leave?
Well, so I'm partnering right now with some organizations, really building up this sense of collective efficacy and authentic leadership. And so, in this experience, what we're doing is we're creating the standard of how do I operate at my best self. Again, I didn't say my authentic self, because there are ranges to my authenticity. And for some of us, authenticity could be a trigger and isn't accepted in every environment. So we got to remember that. So, in what ways can I be my best self and operate in this fullness of my well being? So, we talked, yes, about leadership, but we also talked about life. But who am I in every environment, or every component of my well being, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, educationally, financially? What does that look like for you to thrive in those spaces? And so right now, organizations are really looking at, building team connections, as well as establishing this sense of collective excellence, so that we're not working. Technology is doing a really good job of keeping us in silos and isolating ourselves, and people are having challenges from an emotional intelligence perspective to connect and solve issues collectively that impacts the organization, or even in life. Think about, when was the last time, from a community perspective, that you all came together on something collectively? We're priding ourselves in individuality, but it's also, unfortunately, impacting our ability to make strides as a community. So I think it's important for us to look at, not only what I can get from others, but what can I give and serve for others.
Wow, that is phenomenal, Hakimi. I'm telling you, not only what can I get, but what can I give, and being able to really assess that. How can our guests connect with you, engage with you, continue the conversation with you if they would like to learn more? How can they do that?
Yes, thank you. So you can always go to my website, divinelypowered.com, and send me a message via the chat that we have there. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn. That's where I'm most active, to connect with leaders and organizations who really is serious about leadership growth as well as enrichment. If there are any organizations that are looking for retreats or facilitation and moderation around, increasing their people, our talent pipeline, and employee engagement, you can connect with me on those platforms.
Awesome. And so Lee is actually here in the chat, and he had a question for you. He said, since I couldn't join you all, say, what do you do for fun?
I am now in CrossFit, y'all. This is something that I would never think I would get into, but I am squatting 145 pounds. I'm lifting 95, or bench pressing 95. I'm doing some unique, moves and workouts that I would never see myself doing. I was an athlete growing up, but that's the traditional, basketball workouts, but nothing with like heavy weight. And I'm enjoying it. And I'm doing it with my booski wooski, my husband. And it's just a really good opportunity to keep the connection, growing.
I want to ask this question because normally we do give a shout out to the guys, right? Which is, what would you say has been or is the role of men when it comes to inspiring and motivating women?
I think there's, men are misunderstood when it comes to inspiring and motivating women, because we like to talk about this male toxic masculinity. I think that's just a buzzword. I believe because we are women and we're looking for, security and safety, men are kind of like our opportunity to, like, just to protect us from any type of harm. When we tear them down, we're exposing ourselves to the harm, the violence that exists in culture. And to be quite honest, and people may not agree, I don't feel like we're built for that. That's one reason why we're experiencing, look up this term, it's called weathering, where because of the stressors of life, it's starting to impact our bodies internally. That's because we need a partner. We cannot do this alone. We need a partner to help us through this journey. And the partner that was created for us was meant to be the prophet, priest, protector, and provider of the home, so that we could allow our minds the space to focus on things that truly matter to us.
Wow, that was rich and fantastic. Listen, Hakemia, this has been so amazing to have you on the stage with Women with Grit. I wanted to make sure, see if there was anyone else that had any other questions. We will usually get them throughout the week. So as we do, I will be sure to share them with you. But man, what a phenomenal time. Thank you so much for taking the time to grace the stage of Women with Grit. Any parting words before I give the quick recap?
I appreciate this opportunity to be on your platform as well as to engage with your community. And I would say for all of those, who are in spaces that doesn't allow you to live out your full potential and self, don't minimize the divine power that exists within. And in order for me to discover what that divine power is, I have to connect to something that I personally believe is a greater source of your significance and meaning and why you do what you do. For me, it's my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. For you, it could be something else, your family, Buddha. I mean, well, whoever it is. I have a group of diverse clients who understand that being connected to a source re-energizes you and prepares you for the road ahead and the complexities that exist right now in the world that we live in.
So rich. Be connected and stay connected to the source. Thank you so much, Hakemia. I appreciate you. We appreciate you taking the time to grace the stage of Women with Grit. I'm going to give a quick recap and then we are going to be out of here. So, man, you guys are locked into Women with Grit. We are here tonight with Hakemia Jackson, and she literally dropped so many nuggets. I'm going to give you guys just a quick summary of a few, but again, this is no substitute to the substance of the conversation that we just had. Like, go back, replay this, share it, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, any one of those platforms, with anyone that you feel could utilize this information, as well as those who might be undergoing similar struggles within their space or their industries, right? She talked about staying true to who you are and whose you are. That starts by first knowing who you are and knowing whose you are. So being able to do that, you are put into divine positions for reasons and seasons. So sometimes even when it doesn't feel good, understand the nature that you're there for a purpose and lean into that purpose, especially in the time that it is presented to you. Stay true to yourself, stay true to your values, regardless of what pressures may come upon you, whether that's with people or experiences that are around you. Shine the light on things that are oftentimes missed in the difference, right? And so making sure that sometimes it is the difference that makes the difference. That's what Hakemia talked about. Sometimes it's you being that unicorn in the room, that you are there to create change, to create a shift and be okay with it. And I love the fact that she said that it's okay to be you. And her definition of you was your own uniqueness, and owning that space. Identify your unique value proposition and walk it out. And not only walk it out, but live it out. Sometimes you need people to validate you. So have the right circle of influence that is around you, and know who's a part of your tribe, and know who's actually speaking into your ears and speaking into your life, and make sure that that voice aligns with that which you speak to yourself. Be ferociously curious, as she said, Simon Sinek coined that phrase, by exploring beyond the words and being able to get beyond the space. She talked about the example she had of a role model or an individual in her life that was not of the same upbringing or not of the same background that she had, but that person took the time to be ferociously curious about her so that they could understand the nature of her. He was consistent in her as well as in the space of being able to model the behavior of it. She talked about to organizations, and some of the ways to dispel the myths is that DEI is not a zero sum game, but it is an opportunity to become a more culturally competent organization. And it's really about digging in to get to know those people who are on the team, who are influencing the results in such a way that it's not cliche, it's not a check the box exercise, and that recognizing that everyone has a story when it comes to DE&I. DE&I should also be a strategy within the organization, and not, again, just the space of being able to check the boxes. She talked about being comfortable with being uncomfortable, and that's being able to walk into a space of unknown and lean in on things that may not oftentimes feel good, right? But that can be good for you. Love yourself, even if people who you love don't love you back. And so that's again about being authentic, radiating your unique truth, and also being able to be unapologetic in the use of your gifts. She talked about the space with her of having a strong faith and a strong center, having a village of people that speak life into her, and keeping assets as opposed to those that deplete you around you. And sometimes when you don't feel like yourself, she talked about taking a moment to pause, reflect, and refine if you're not having that great day. But in doing so, connect with yourself. Accept that you cannot do it all, but that's where people come in, and being comfortable with relinquishing the control, as she has deemed the sphere of control. Know what's within your influence, and then relinquish what is not. And then the other thing she talked about is recognizing that the things that you keep around you, ask yourself, is it feeding you or is it taking away from you? Is it depleting your energy or is it replenishing you? Assess who you are every day when it comes to having the opportunity to do so, and check in with yourself. And lastly, she said, don't minimize the divine power within. Recognize your strength, your source, where it comes from, and stay connected. Wow, this has been such a phenomenal time, Hakemia. Thank you so much for joining the stage of Women with Grit. We will be back again next week with another amazing guest. And in the meantime, please feel free to follow us, like us, as well as share this. So from my co-partner and I, we simply say have a wonderful night, and we'll see you next week right here on Women with Grit. Take care.
Bye.